Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be taking a look at a couple different landing throttle techniques. We're going to look at the conventional chop and drop, and the coast I like to call it, and we're also going to take a look at the power all the way kind of approach, and we'll go ahead and see the difference here. So the aircraft for this today is that we're going to take our Bonanza out for a spin. As you can see, it is an incredibly gusty day today, so this would be a great way to go ahead and test a lot of these kind of complications basically head first, so that we know exactly what some of the things that are going to come up. So what am I referring to with throttle technique? So for those of you who have flown aircraft like the Cessna 172, usually think of it like, we're approaching down to the land, we're going to keep our 60, 65 knots in to pretty much the last possible second. Once we get really, really close to the ground itself, usually what we do is we pull the power out when we have about 10 feet to go. That's underneath you, by the way. And we basically float the plane down to the ground and settle in nice and smoothly. What we have today is we have the G36. So there's a couple of reasons why I picked this particular airplane. And you're going to kind of see why I've done this once we get to the tricky bit here. One thing's for sure, though, is, man, does this thing climb. I've been flying 172s too much lately because I normally be like, we're going to get there eventually. So what we're going to do first is we're going to do our conventional sort of approach here. So we're going to fly the plane down. And again, this is the world's worst traffic pattern here. But like I said, this is just for demonstration purposes. So I'm not stressing about it too much here. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the chop method. So we're going to come right up to the end of the runway at approach speed. When we have about 10 feet to go up underneath us, like I was saying a few moments ago, we're going to go ahead and chop that throttle down. And we're just going to kind of coast it in through a landing and kind of see what comes down. Now, it's worth noting, we'll talk a little bit about technical discussions real quickly here, that this type of aircraft uses a laminar flow wing. What that means is the airflow is going to be very, very smooth over the wing itself, and there's not going to be a lot of drag on that wing. That's going to mean that when we come in for our approach, that we're going to have a little bit of difficulty getting the plane to slow down. You're going to have a much longer float, and you're generally going to have a significantly longer, kind of a longer landing distance here. If we were on an aircraft with a high drag wing, such as like a 172, like a Piper Warrior or something like that, this would be a slightly different experience. So I'm just kind of prefacing everything like that for just a moment here as we kind of set ourselves up for our approach. All right, let's go ahead and kind of spin around the corner here. I'll get ready. Get down to our approach speed here. It's going to be right about 75. We're going to do nothing bad in the approach depth here. Yeah, this looks pretty good. Just kind of enjoy a little long approach. It is a really bad day to fly small airplanes today where I live, but I thought it would make things a little extra realistic, so I went with it anyway. All right, our landing gear down, our flaps are in the landing position. We've got our lights turned on. Our speed is a little tiny bit high. Not bad, not bad. All right, let's go line ourselves up at the end of that runway there, right on speed. We're doing about 75. Whoa! Good morning to you too, Turbulence. This new Turbulence model, I've got some things to say about it. All right, there. So we got ourselves about 75, 78. That's about a Cirrus approach speed. It's about 90, I think, right about there. That's going to be a pretty appropriate speed. Got ourselves a crosswind, as you can see very plainly. Yeah, looking pretty good. We got that nice gust coming from the left there. But again, this is going to be part of why I wanted to do this. All right, there's our big old number 33. Again, enjoying that little bit of a crab angle. We'll go ahead and switch to a wing low. So I'm just going to tip the left wing down a little bit. A little bit of left rudder. All right, chop the throttle. Here we go. So this is the chop and drop method. Whoa. Whoa. And go ahead and settle on the runway. Left aileron down. And we'll settle in. All right, so things to say. Definitely nose high attitude. That's one thing I noticed. Controllability was good. I was able to keep it basically in the middle of the runway despite all those shenanigans that were making things kind of fun for me there. But, not too bad, not too bad. So now what I'll do is I'll get us all set up back in the pattern, and this time we'll do a powered on approach. There's just some days that we're not meant to fly. All right, so for this approach, instead of cutting the throttle and coasting it, what we're going to do is we're actually going to leave a little bit of the throttle in. So I'm going to use the exact same technique I used, the exact same speed I used a minute ago. But this time what we're going to do is when we get over the end of the throttle, we're going to pull the end of the throttle. That would hurt too. If we get to the end of the threshold there, what we're actually going to do is we're going to pull the throttle back most of the ways. And we're going to leave in probably about not too much, probably about an inch of throttle if we were flying this thing in the real world. Woo! I don't know what you guys are going for, Microsoft Flight Sim, but if I were in VR right now, you'd be buying me a new computer monitor for all the thunder chunks there. All right, let's do this. So we got about 80 knots. That's looking pretty good. I set myself up a little bit higher in the chair here. Actually, this is as high as I can go in this chair. We got to write the Beechcraft Corporation, ask them to fix it. That's dangerous. All right, there's my lovely runway there. Big old number 33. Speed is the same. All right, same technique. We're going to pull the throttle back, but we're going to push it forward 1 inch. So we have 1 inch of power left right now. over the runway. All right, settle it in. A little left, and we're going to go settle down to the ground. All right. So what can we see from those two examples there? For one, when we left the power in, we definitely had a substantially longer roll here. You can see that very, very clearly based on what position I was in here versus what position I was in the last one. One of the big differences, for me anyway, was that it was much more controllable. Like I felt like I wasn't zigzagging all around the runway or anything like that. It definitely had a little bit more a little bit easier time getting exactly where I want it to be positioning wise. So the interesting thing is in the real world, the technique it will definitely change based on the weight and type of wing in the airplane. Generally, if you're a high drag wing like a 182, you cut the throttle in, but it's going to slow down fast. If you're in a laminar flow like this, you're going to be coasting for quite a while there, but you definitely want to make sure you have that positive controllability. As always, make sure you probably do what they recommend that you. There's a lot of DHC4s here. They recommend always doing what they say in the manual, and on the case of like the 182, basically we pull the power out. But if you're looking for that extra little bit of controllability and making it a little bit easier to get that nose up for the last bit of flare, that little bit of power in makes a big difference. Enjoy.